Hey, welcome to Talking Man with the Bowtie Boy. I'm Tom Saviello, and my special guest, Richard Corey's come back. I didn't chase him away the first time.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Thanks for coming back. This is great. We're going to talk a little more about East Wilton.
We are. Another name for it was the Lower Village. Lower Village, because it was lower on the watershed, and then we had the Upper Village, and we discussed last time that was the first place in Wilton that got developed.
So it wasn't known as East Wilton to start?
No, it wasn't. It was Tingstown.
It was still part of Tingstown.
Tingstown Township. Yeah. So our first picture that we have today here is actually shows of the waterfalls there in East Wilton. And some of this was probably taken around 1890. And it shows some of the areas that were being developed there at this time here. But the earliest development there was when Samuel Butterfield.
Well, let's take a minute, look at this picture so that we can talk about it. And you can look at yours.
Yep.
But I think you told me that the only picture that, as you drive through East Wilton, the only house that's still there is the middle white one.
Yes.
Where Ken Richards used to live, the massage therapist. The one to the right, which was the harness shop, and the one to the left was a blacksmith shop.
Yes.
They're not there anymore.
They're not there anymore. And I think you remember the one, the blacksmith shop was torn down maybe 25 years ago.
It probably was just torn down when we got here. We got here about 30 years ago. So I got here 30 years ago. So it probably may have still been there, but I didn't know what I was looking for. But that's pretty close to where the park is right now, isn't it?
Well, it's on the other side of on the other side of the road, closer to the White House there.
Yeah.
But you can see where the buildings in the distance there.
Yeah.
The old sawmill. That's at the site of the park, the Bishop Currently Park. You see in the distance the buildings are not as big as the other ones there, but you can see that that was the saw and grist mills that they first developed there at the falls.
Now, how close is to the sitting lady that they always put at the rock? That's pretty close to that?
No, this would be directly right where the basketball court is. And this would be right where the old fire station was.
Wow, that's where the grist mill was.
The grist mill and sawmill.
Wow. Because you couldn't tell today at all. Wow.
Yeah, so this is why they came here, to harness the water power from this area here. Samuel Butterfield actually came over from Farmington, and he lived in the house that just was torn down yesterday.
Oh, wow.
His father was Samuel Butterfield Sr., and he was the junior part of it.
So you got a picture of Mr. Butterfield?
Mr. Butterfield, this is actually Henry Butterfield. We know that Henry Butterfield was a brother to Samuel Butterfield, and he came over with his brother to help build the grist mill and sawmill back in 1790-91. So he was here.
Oh, wow.
So it's amazing that we have a picture of this guy. This guy was born in 1777, and he lived to 1865.
Wow.
He came over and he helped his brother build the water power there in East Wilton, the dam and the mills, and then his brother only owned the property for about 7 years, and then he sold it to Henry. And then Samuel Butterfield actually moved to Wilton and established the big workings of the flumes, the penstocks, and the canals there in Wilton.
Wow.
So, and then Henry was this guy right here was very instrumental as far as constructing those facilities there in Wilton. You know what the neat thing about this, Tom, is that this guy's niece was the first person to be born in Wilton.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep. His niece was Sarah Butterfield, born in 1793.
Wow.
So that's sort of neat to kind of think of that.
Well, think of it, like you said, to have the picture of this gentleman who was born in 1776, to be able to take his picture and look at one of the founding fathers, literally, of Wilton.
Yep. And then
there's still Butterfield families around, too. I imagine there must be
There are. Yep, there are.
Well, fascinating.
So the next picture here is of the old Butterfield House there in East Wilton, and we covered a little bit of it last time that we were talking. This is the site of where the town meeting 1803 when the town of Wilton was incorporated.
No kidding.
So, and this building is fortunately still standing.
Now, whose building is this one?
This is the one that actually just was for sale and has been sold. It's right there on Main Street. It's down right at the corner of Austin Street and Main Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the one that they're putting a new roof on it right now.
That is correct. That is correct.
So that's where Mr. Butterfield's house used to be.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
So this was probably built in probably the 1790s, mid 1790s, whatever. And there was town meetings were held there. The first town meeting before Wilton was even established was done in 1796, and it's likely it was at this location. And at that time there was 34 families in Wilton.
34. So if they were coming to the town meeting, they would have come from the upper village, whereas they're living up that way.
But there would probably be very few. There were probably more up on Orchard Drive and stuff like that, up in your neighborhood and stuff like that, because that was really more where the area was first developed until the water power was really established
okay.
there.
So like they sometimes call my neighborhood the Brown neighborhood. So that would have been those people up there, and then
Yep.
Rufus, I think it's Rufus Brown that's buried up there, Revolutionary War guy. Those would have been the people that would have come down to this meeting by horse and buggy.
Yep.
Wow.
So we know the first town meeting probably was located here was 1796, and that was back when it was still Tingstown, because of the proprietors had named it that. But we do know that when they wanted to make a town, to incorporate in 1803, they met back there again. And by then, there was around 90 families.
Wow.
90 families. And guess what the town was evaluated when it was first incorporated? That's sort of unfair.
Sorry. I'm going to say $825.
No, it was $34,000.
Oh, 30? Wow.
Yeah, so that was, I thought that was
money
quite,
for that.
Yeah.
Those days.
So that's a location of a lot of historic events right there. And I got to tell you the story as far as we were talking about how Wilton was named. So at that meeting, they were trying to decide, what are we going to call this place? We're going to call it Harrytown or Tingstown and stuff like that. And this is when Abraham Butterfield, who had just moved over from Wilton, New Hampshire, said, hey, I'd be willing to pay for all the costs associated with incorporating this town if we can name it Wilton. Okay. And the rumor has it, after a little liquid persuasion, that he got the other people to come around to his side. So thus we have Wilton as our name.
No kidding. Wow, that's interesting. So they had a little adult beverages that's persuaded them.
Well, that's what
the story goes.
That's what the story goes. I work on a lot of stuff that's not primary resource. It's people who have gone before me, like Dorothy Beatty and stuff is a lot, and Ruth Adamo is a lot of the Harold Carcass. All these people have written so much about Wilton and East Wilton and East Dixfield, Dryden, that you kind of go off of their material. So sometimes I would like to go back and kind of double check some of the primary resources.
Wow, that's cool. So you think those meetings all took place here at the Butterfield House?
Yep, at least that one in 1803. And the next picture that we have is of the waterfalls again. And as being involved in the town affairs and stuff like that, you know what the first few things that they wanted to do when they first made the town in 1803? They was thinking about schools, and they were thinking about cemeteries, and improving the Temple Road. That was probably what we'd call a bridle path from Temple, because Temple was actually coming to East Wilton as a service area. Instead of going all the way to Farmington or Farmington Falls, they'd come over to the hill and come to. So a lot of connections between Wilton and Temple. And actually, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think there is a temple in New Hampshire too. I think so. Some of the people, I don't know how that's named. That's a good thing that we could.
We had put that picture up. I think the one with the bridge in it. And
they probably will later if.
Okay.
So they built that bridge too, because a lot of the mills were located on the other side, the left side of the bridge as we looked, and we see a little bit of the sickle factory right here that we're going to talk about in a little bit here.
Richard, is that bridge in the same location that
It
the
is.
present bridge? Not obviously, it's not the same bridge.
Yep.
So if I'm coming into town, this dam that's right here,
Where the waterfalls is.
is that not there anymore?
The remnants of that dam is still there.
Yeah, remnants, but it's not
But
there.
that's where that fall, where you can
Yeah,
actually see from the trestle, is right there.
Yep. And that's
So-
where they had such a drop in the head that they were able to generate electricity from.
Hydropower.
Hydropower
Yep,
to drive
yep.
the grist mills or the other mills that were there.
Yep. You know, actually, it wasn't until about 1920, 1930 that the Wilton actually started to use electricity. As far as from Wilton Lumber Company, I think, was Norris Adams operated the Wilton Lumber Company up until about the 20s, and he was using water power. It was just about that time that they started to use electricity for operating the sawmill, at least.
Wow.
So we got an aerial shot of like East Wilton.
There we go.
Yeah, and it's like the area that's behind the bowling alley. We know that about 1786 or so, the proprietors down in Massachusetts hired Samuel Adams and Samuel Butterfield to actually go and inspect the land that they were just recently given a grant to see if it was suitable, so that when they would accept it. So they did go over. So Samuel Butterfield and both Solomon Adams was living in Farmington at the time.
Right.
So they came over and checked it out, and they were the ones that kind of spotted out these areas of good water potential for developing sites. So
This is a relatively recent postcard picture right there that we're showing right now.
this
correct?
is a picture that my son had taken from a drone, and we're looking down on Bryce Weeks's farm buildings down in the lower right.
Yeah.
And then that area was a site of a cotton mill. We talked about it a little bit. Down below at the turn of the river, right by the bridge, downstream of the bridge, there was a cotton mill. And that only lasted from 1810 to 1815. But subsequent activity there flooded a big area. And all this meadow would be underwater by like a 13-foot dam.
Wow.
So, and in fact, Tom, you like this? You know how Cemetery Road goes down past the cemetery? Well, the effect of the dams would actually go back and hit the road of the Cemetery Road that leads down to the Peace Pond camps and stuff. And also that road actually went out to McCrillis Corner way back then. So the town had a lawsuit against Butterfields here, Abraham Butterfields, of damaging the damage that was being done to the road because of the activity of his dam.
Oh, no kidding. Holy
But to just imagine that being just full of water. And the big thing about this is located at a great spot, because you got to think as far as where it is on the Wilton Stream. It's after all the feeder streams and stuff. And then the story goes that when all the other mills in the end of the summer was wanting of water, wanting to grind, this mill here was one of the best mills for grinding availability, because it was on the watersheds and stuff. Of course, the one at the outlet was still going pretty strong, but all the other smaller mills did not have it, because you got to think this is after Peace Pond drains out. So you got a whole nother water source that's flowing into Wilton Stream at this point.
Wow.
So they said that they used to come from Strong and Phillips and stuff like that, come down here with grain to have grind because when there was shortage of being able to supply water for the grinding purposes.
Wow.
So I thought that was kind of a cool fact.
Yeah.
And here we have remnants of, I don't believe this is the cotton mill here, the foundation remains, but this is on Bryce and Carol Weeks' property, and this is probably remnants of a grist mill. The foundation remains, and we do know that there was a cider mill there also. So and you can actually see it's an area where the dam was probably built in between crevices of rocks.
So I packed it in there and just.
They used that as a foundation. That was a natural foundation. Same way with the ones up at the East Wilton village itself. It was, you know, they put the mud sill right in between crevices and stuff like that, and it was a firm foundation.
Cool. You know, one day this summer, what we're going to do is I'm going to come pick you up, and we're going to go ride around. And that would be great.
That would be fun. Well, actually, one thing that we want to do maybe this summer, we're still in the planning process. The Wilton Historical Society may offer a walking tour.
Oh, wow.
Given that we're still up in the air as far as how we're going to do meetings this summer and presentations and thought. We're thinking about doing some walking tours of like East Wilton and Wilton and stuff, and
That's
go
a
over
great
this
idea.
and using some of these pictures like this and talking about the sites as we go.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love that.
Yeah. So here we have, we're back in downtown East Wilton here, right at the corner, the intersection of Temple Road. And this is the building on the right is still there. That's where Barbara Holt lives there.
Oh, yeah. It's the
And you can
apartment
see,
house,
and you can see the building right off to the left of it is no longer there.
Right.
But that was actually moved over, and that was the fire station, Tom.
Oh, no kidding.
They moved that portion of the building over the opposite side of the road and made the fire station. You almost can envision that, can't you? There?
Yeah.
And the next house is still there, but you know, but that was moved over.
Yeah. Wow. So and that was moved into the park, which we eventually took down.
Yep.
No kidding.
Yep.
Wow.
So this is like like I said, about this time, this building here was the Justin Dakin's store, and it was the first store in Wilton.
Wow.
I'm using Wilton and East Wilton, the same.
Because the Upper Village wasn't developed at all yet.
Well, yeah, a little bit, but you know, the commerce was here because the workers were down in this area right there. But it did migrate up north there. So we have the next one. The next slide that we have is a picture of a woolen mill. This is the Walker Willow Mill, built in 1840. And this was a woolen mill that was located right behind Shelley's hometown market.
Oh, no kidding.
If you go on the train trestles there, you can see the foundation remains of the woolen mill. The products that they produced at this time, Tom, was scarlet and blue flannel. Now, I'm not sure quite what that all is. It's probably material that would go on to someplace else where they would make clothing.
Wow.
Things. But this mill actually was first built in 1840 and was actually known as the Wilton Manufacturing Company. And then other names was associated would be the Moosehead Mill, and then the last one that was associated was the Walker Mill.
Wow.
So
it was wool. They'd bring, and this was all big sheep country at one time.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have not followed that angle of it, and it would be good. So, and here I like this next shot. Here we have of the train trestle. They may need to add these later on, but so you can see the train trestle here.
Yeah.
The train arriving into towns really kind of changed things quite a bit. For the good and bad. You know, it brought in goods from other places, which maybe that community actually made themselves. So it made the cottage industries kind of like disappeared a little bit more because we could get things out all over the place. But here we have a picture of this is taken from like the current bridge.
Yeah. Oh,
the location of the current bridge.
And looking towards Farmington.
Looking towards Farmington.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
That bridge is still in the same location there.
Yeah.
And do you see the building off to the left there?
Yes.
Kind of the house with the two stacks there. This is a kind of interesting story. East Wilton has a house that actually a guy named Franklin Winslow Johnson lived in, and he ultimately became the president of Colby College, and he was under his leadership. He reloaded the campus from downtown to where the campus is currently located.
Wow.
Born, I'm not sure if he was born, but lived in East Wilton, Maine.
Wow.
So
cool. Richard, let's do this. Hold on to these. And let's talk about the things you brought with us.
Okay, sure enough.
Let's catch up on those, and then we'll see what we got for time.
Yep. Okay, so we're just upstream from the woolen mill was the Holt Sickle Factory. And the Holt Sickle Factory was in operation from probably around 1863 to about 1903. And the biggest, the thing that they're known for is a
hay rake.
Not a hay knife.
Hay knife.
Everything was done in loose hay, and they would get packed, and they couldn't get the hay out very easily. So these hay knives were sold worldwide. They even were sold in the Scandinavian countries and stuff. So what they would do is they get up and they would cut the hay. It would be just like how, when you try to remove a bunch of leaves, that's been packed in over time. You know how hard they are to get out? Yeah. Well, this would be the way they would use the hay knife.
Now, do they have a brand on it that says it's?
Yeah, this was they called the Lightning hay knife, and there was two different models and stuff, but they were made right there in East Wilton. And on one side of the river, the stream, they made the wooden handles.
Oh, no kidding!
Right where Bishop Park is now, they had a mill right there, and it would take quite a process. The workers there would actually make about 20 dozen of these a day. Wow. About 20 to 30 people would be working, and they sold for $18 a dozen.
Oh, jeez. Then they'd bring all that metal from someplace.
Somewhere, yep. And there'd be, with the water power, they would hammer that. They had a hammering room and a grinding room and things like that. So,
wow.
Isn't that kind of cool?
Yeah, that's really cool.
And another thing is, we will be careful here with Tom, but this is a machete. Well, what would we be doing with a machete here? They sold them down in the Caribbean.
And they made them here.
Yep, and this was used for sugar cane.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep, and even some of the things that
Just
they
hold
made.
it up to the camera there so people can see it. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
A leather sheet and stuff.
And they made that in Wilton too.
Right, I assume, I have not done enough research to know where they are, but as you can see, that's their motto and stuff like that. And this actually was made by probably right around 1900, because this is the label on this is Clark and Parsons.
Yeah, Clark and Parsons.
And they probably purchased the mill in 1894 or something like that, and ran it until about, like I said, 1903, 1904, when basically the interest down in North Wayne or stuff like that was another company down there took over the bulk of the market. Here's an interesting thing. Here's a bread knife. One of the last products that they made was a bread knife right there in East Wilton, Maine, and so you can kind of just barely see some of the writings on there.
Yeah, Clark and
Clark and Parsons, probably.
Parsons.
But they changed their motto every once in a while under different shares of ownership. But.
And that was right there in Wilton, East Wilton.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow. Best, it says, special forged steel, best oil tempered, highest grade. Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And one thing I really would like to find, there's rumors that they actually made guns there, rifles. And I have not seen a lot of primary resources that will give me that information. So if anybody else out there has any information, I'd love to get it on that.
So how long did this sickle factory stay? You said not very many years, though.
Well, I mean, it's from about, there was activity on that side of the river for 100 years, starting out with a blacksmith shop and large sickles for cutting grass and stuff. So this was in operation for about 25 to 30 years. But there was activities even before there under different ownership with different buildings. Another time we come back, we'll show some pictures of some of the buildings and cover this again as far as...
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, this half hour flew by. Man.
Yeah, we got enough material here. We could do a lot.
Well, we may do something like that in a second. But this is. I mean, I've always heard about so would this be the equivalent of what was the Bayonet Factory, or was that separate? Would that be bayonets made there too? Probably.
I don't know.
Because Harold one time talked to me about a Bayonet Factory, so I'm guessing they probably were one and the same.
I have never seen any bayonets there, but I will. But I haven't been through the whole collection that we have there.
Wow. So, Richard, this is phenomenal. Will you come back?
I will come back.
Great. You got
Great.
me fascinated. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Talkin' Maine.